Hello, my name is Ryan Gottfredson, and I'm a leadership professor at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm also a leadership consultant. I'm excited to talk to you about your future. I hope you're excited to think about it. In fact, to start off, I want to ask you a question. What is a brighter future? Well, here are some possible answers. A brighter future is a future of opportunity. It's a future of possibility. It's the potential for being in a state or a place that is better than your current situation. In fact, I want you to imagine for a minute a brighter future. What does that look like? What does it sound like? What does it taste like? What does it feel like? And I want you to actually write down some of your impressions. So as you think about this, think about all aspects of your life, your personal life, your professional life, your social life, whatever that might be. Start imagining a brighter future. So feel free to hit the pause button now to take a minute to imagine your brighter future and then also write down some of your impressions. Okay, I hope you were able to give that adequate thought, and I hope it made you excited. I know that I always get excited when I think about my brighter future. But as you think about your brighter future, and you consider where you are now and where you want to go, what are some of the differences that you see? Can you identify specific differences? That relates to the main question that I want to cover with our time together, is how do we get from where we are now to our brighter future? How do we get from point A to point B? Well, before I answer that, we first maybe need to talk about what prevents going from point A to point B. Well, one of those answers is inertia. Do you happen to know what inertia means? I'll be honest, I had to look it up. Here's a couple definitions. Inertia is the tendency to do nothing or to remain unchanged. Another definition is the idea that a property of matter will continue in its existing state until changed. What this is suggesting is that our life is on a current trajectory. And an inertia suggests that we're going to stay on that current trajectory until a change occurs. So if we want to go from where we are now to a brighter future, we've got to alter our trajectory in some way. But before we get to that, let's stick with inertia for just a minute. There's two sources of inertia that organizations and people face. They are organization and standardization. There's a variety of different elements or ways that we can think about this. So for example, one element is that there's structures, policies, and procedures, maybe even personal habits that are put into place. They're put into place for good reasons, that we want to incentivize certain behaviors. But we need to recognize that they're rather difficult to change. They support and compel the inertia. And over time, as the external environment changes, these structures, policies, and procedures become less and less effective. Another aspect of organization and standardization is that these things create centralized control of the organizational mission and processes. What this means is that usually when we structure our organization or put in policies and procedures, we put the power in the hands of a few. That has its pros and cons, but usually when the power is in the hands of a few, it's usually at the top of the hierarchy within the organization, and they demonstrate or possess this centralized control. Another aspect of organization and standardization is that prior success or change in general leaves people closed to new directions or new opportunities. This is things like, oh, this has always worked. Why should we change it? If it's not broke, don't fix it. But that's part of inertia. And then last, another aspect of organization and standardization is that often the processes that are put in place or how we do things becomes more important than the purpose or why we do things. So it's because of these four aspects and others that standardization and organization compel inertia. So let me ask you this question. Do you see organization and standardization in your organization, in your department, or in your team? Well, let me give you some questions to consider whether you see this there or not. Is there an emphasis on ease of administration? Has the organization's purpose been implemented from the top down as opposed to the bottom up? Do competing agendas lead to turf wars or silo issues? Is there centralized control of the organization's mission and processes? Is it difficult to convince others to explore new directions? And is there a risk-adverse culture? If you answered yes to any of these questions, your organization is seeing the effects of organization and standardization. Now, once again, these aren't necessarily bad, but they're sources of inertia. They are things that prevent change, and they are things that can prevent a brighter future. So how do we journey from point A to point B, from where we are to a brighter future? Well, here's a couple quotes that I think point us in the right direction to answering this question. One quote is, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results." Another quote is, "If you want something you've never had, you must be willing to do something you've never done before." I don't know about you, but I buy these quotes. To me, they make sense. But there's a couple of aspects about these quotes that I want to point out, is both of them are focused on the idea of doing things. But I think if we want to change our trajectory and have a brighter future, we got to think about things a little bit more fundamental than doing. So let me alter these quotes slightly. First, let me suggest that insanity is thinking the same way and expecting different results. Additionally, if you want something you've never had, you must be willing to think in ways you never have before. That if we want to change the brightness of our future, then we need to focus on our thinking. Now let me ask you a question. From your perspective, how willing are people to change their thinking? Well, one of the things that you're probably thinking is it depends on what we're thinking about, right? It's easy to change our thinking when it comes to trivial things, but when it comes to beliefs and values, how willing are people to change their thinking around those things? Well, it's probably pretty difficult. So if people aren't very willing to change their thinking, and this is a mouthful, does that mean that they think that their thinking is the best way to think? Let me ask that question again. If people aren't very willing to change their thinking, does that mean that they think that their thinking is the best way to think? Well, it does, right? Most of us think that our thinking is the best way to think. If we didn't think this way, we probably would have changed our thinking by now. But the reality is that our thinking is not the best way to think. We can all improve the way that we think. And if we can improve the way that we think, then we could create a brighter future for ourselves. The purpose of this course is to empower you to think better and consequently empower you to be a creator of a brighter future for your personal life and your professional life. So I'm excited to start creating. To get going with this, I want to present 4 situations where there are 2 people that find themselves in that situation, but they think about the situation so differently, but yet both feel that they are right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to present to you a word or a phrase and a picture, and I want you to pay attention to what your first thoughts are as you see this. Here we go. First is risk. What are your first thoughts? Do you see risk as something to avoid? Or do you see risk as being necessary in order to obtain meaningful rewards? Next, what about disagreement? Do you see disagreement as a threat, or do you see it as necessary for learning? What about challenge and failure? Do you see challenge and failure as something to avoid, or as an opportunity to learn and grow? Finally, and here's just a picture of a homeless person. When you see a homeless person, do you think of them as someone who should get a job? Or do you think of them as someone who is doing their best? You see, there's a huge difference there. When we approach a homeless person as though they're someone who should get a job, we're not very sympathetic to their position. But we see them as somebody who's doing their best, suggesting that something has happened in their life that has led them to believe that the way that they're currently living is the best way to live. When we understand that, we become much more sympathetic, even empathetic. So the idea being here is that people could see the same exact thing, but interpret it completely differently. In fact, as you look at this table, who do you think is going to have a brighter future? Person A or person B? So what is this factor that causes people to see the same exact thing, but interpret it so differently? It's a factor that answers this question of how do we get from where we are now, point A, to our brighter future, point B. It's also a factor that, if uncovered, would empower you to think better and to be more empowered to create a brighter future. So what this is all leading up to is identifying a factor that addresses not only our main question, but also our purpose here. This main factor is our mindsets. You see, our mindsets are the mental lenses that we use to view and interpret the world around us. You see, how we see the world around us shapes how we interact and navigate and operate within our world. I like to call our mindsets our mental fuel filters because every day we're bombarded by thousands, if not millions, of stimuli. And it's our mindsets that filter select information into our brain that goes on to fuel our thinking, learning, and behavior, and consequently the brightness of our future. Thus, if we can harness the power of our mindsets, then we can unleash the potential for our future. But here's the problem. You identify a mindset that drive success and a brighter future. You see, most people don't know what mindsets drive success. In fact, because of this, they commonly overlook their mindsets. You're probably one of them. I was there at one point in time before I learned about mindset. We have a tendency to overlook our mindsets because we don't know much about them. But those people that understand mindsets and the foundational role that they play in our lives, they seek to harness their power. Here's an example. It comes from Google, who does a few things right in this world. A recent Inc.com article looked at the 6 key attributes that Google instills in its managers. You want to know what was number 1? It was their mindsets. When we understand this foundational role that they play in our lives, we seek to harness their power. So when I first learned about the importance of mindsets, I had the question of what mindsets are out there? What mindsets do I need to know about to drive a brighter future, drive greater success in my life? Well, I scoured the academic literature and research on mindsets. What I found is that there's pockets of research on mindset, some of which have existed for decades. And all of the research on mindset shows that mindsets drive individuals' thinking, learning, and behavior. But one of the things that's interesting about this research on mindsets is while there's different pockets of mindsets, they're not talking to each other. So what I've done is I've pulled all these mindsets together to create a concise framework that can help us better understand what mindsets we need to develop to create a better future for our lives. And these mindsets, so I'm going to talk about 4 sets of mindsets. They range on a continuum from negative to positive. For each of these sets of mindsets, I want you to ask yourself, essentially, where do you fall on this continuum from negative to positive? My guess is you're not going to be blatantly in the negative. You're not going to be way on the far positive side either. You're going to be somewhere along the continuum. So I want you to pay attention and try to get a sense of where you might be. In fact, later, I'll invite you to take a personal mindset assessment in order to assess where you are on each of these continuums. So here are the 4 sets of mindsets that lead to a brighter future. There's prevention and promotion, closed and open, fixed and growth, and inward and outward. Let me describe each of these for you. So let's start with prevention and promotion. When we have a prevention mindset, we're focused on not losing. But when we have a promotion mindset, we're focused on winning and gains. To describe the differences between these two mindsets, let me use an analogy that we're a captain of a boat. If we're a captain of a boat and we have a prevention mindset, our primary focus is on ensuring that we don't sink. We want things to run smoothly. We don't want problems to occur. We don't want to take any risk. We don't want to rock the boat. Thus, largely our goal becomes to maintain the status quo. We focus on what is urgent, but not necessarily what is most important, which is getting to a final destination. Ultimately, what's happening here is we're doing what is easy. And I'll come back to that here in just a minute. If we're a captain of a boat and we have a promotion mindset, we operate very differently. Our primary focus becomes the destination and making progress towards it. Rather than try to avoid problems and risk, we actually anticipate problems and we accept risk because we know that without risk comes no reward. Thus, the goal of a promotion-minded captain is very different. It's an attainment goal as opposed to maintaining the status quo. A promotion-minded captain focuses on what is important, not necessarily what is urgent. Thus, they're doing what is most rewarding. You see, the ultimate difference between the prevention and promotion mindsets is that when you have a prevention-minded captain, the captain is so focused on not sinking that it's got no direction. It gets blown about by the waves and the current in the sea. It ultimately ends up in a destination not of the captain's choosing. But a promotion-minded captain is willing to go against the waves and the current in order to end up in a destination of his or her own proactive design. So here's some of these differences that I've talked about. Depending on our mindset, we see things differently. Our focus is different. Our approach is different. Our behaviors are different. Our beliefs are different. And therefore, our behaviors are different. And therefore, our future is different. So, for example, as I mentioned, when we have a prevention mindset, we're focused on things running smoothly. When we have a promotion mindset, we're focused on reaching our destination. When we have a prevention mindset, we focus on doing the easy thing. When we have a promotion mindset, we focus on doing the right thing. You see, there's a difference here. Our mindsets cue us in on different ways of interpreting the world. Thus, we navigate our world very differently depending upon our mindsets. Well, who's likely to have a brighter future? Well, those with purpose, goals, and a destination are going to be more successful, surely, right? Those without a purpose, or without goals, or without a destination will seek to simply maintain the status quo. or in other words, inertia. This may prevent failure, but it's not going to ensure success. Research on prevention and promotion mindsets has found that those with a promotion mindset have higher engagement, higher satisfaction, and higher job performance. But there's only one benefit to being prevention-minded, and that is lower safety incidence rates. I'm not saying that that's unimportant, but it is only one benefit. Next is closed and open mindsets. When we have a closed mindset, we're closed to the ideas and suggestions of others. When we're open to the ideas and suggestions of others. And we give them adequate time and thought. In fact, when we have an open mindset, we have a fear of being wrong. And that fear opens us up to seeking out the ideas and perspectives of others. As you consider whether you're open or closed, before you smugly slap an open-minded sticker on your forehead, consider this. Closed-minded people would never consider that they could actually be closed-minded. In fact, their perceived open-mindedness is what's so dangerous. See, our closed and open mindsets once again shape how we see the world around us. Those with a closed mindset have a focus on being right. They want to have their ideas supported. Those with an open mindset, they want to find truth. They want to see options optimally. Those with a closed mindset, they seek to provide answers. And because they're providing answers and not asking questions, they're largely out of touch. The opposite is the case for those with an open mindset. They want to ask questions and they seek to understand. Those with a closed mindset avoid feedback, they avoid new perspectives. Those with an open mindset seek feedback and they invite new perspectives. Those with a closed mindset see disagreements as threats. They believe that what they know is best. Those with an open mindset see disagreement as an opportunity to learn, and they see and admit that they could be wrong. So who's likely to have a brighter future? Well, those with a closed mindset have a tendency to be unapproachable and off-putting. Their learning and perspective taking is limited, and their decision making and problem solving is also of lower quality. That isn't suggesting a bright future to me. Here's a quote by Ray Dalio, who's the founder of Bridgewater Associates, the most successful hedge fund in history. He says in his book Principles, "This closed-mindedness is very costly. It causes you to miss out on all sorts of wonderful possibilities and dangerous threats that other people might be willing to show you. It blocks criticism that could be constructive and even life-saving." On the other hand, those with an open mindset they allow others to express their voice. The result of this is that those who are able to express their voice feel like they are of value and they are engaged in their jobs. Those with an open mindset generally have higher quality thinking. And an open mindset fuels the number one factor that drives top performing teams. That's psychological safety. This idea that we can express our ideas and opinions and even take risk without fear of repercussion. What I'm suggesting here is that those with an open mindset have the right foundation to having a brighter future than those with a closed mindset. The next mindset set is the difference between fixed and growth mindsets. When we have a fixed mindset, we see ourselves and others as being unable to change, particularly our talents, abilities, and intelligence. When we have a growth mindset, we see ourselves and others as being able to change, particularly our talents, abilities, and intelligence. Research has found that roughly half of the population has a fixed mindset, the other half has a growth mindset. These have some startling implications. To demonstrate, let me explain an experiment on these different mindsets. So in this experiment, some researchers had students take a mindset assessment. Those that scored low or that had a fixed mindset were put into group 1. Those with a growth mindset were put into group 2. And then they were presented with 8 easy questions and then 4 hard questions. What the researchers wanted to ascertain was how would these different groups of students respond differently to failure? So largely these two groups are essentially the same, all except for their mindsets. And what they wanted to figure out is, do they respond differently to failure? Well, group 1, when they hit the hard questions, they went from being rather pleased with themselves to being rather depressed. Their thoughts quickly denigrated. In fact, many of them just simply gave up. After the experiment, the researchers asked them, how many did you get right and how many did you get wrong? On average, these fixed-minded students said that they got 5 right and 6 wrong, suggesting that they underemphasized their successes and overemphasized their failures. But the results were night and day different with group 2, those that had a growth mindset. When they hit the hard questions, they started to encourage themselves. They dug in more vigorously, and they remained confident and optimistic. Again, essentially the same students, but the only difference here is their mindsets, how they see and interpret failure. See, what happens here is when we have a fixed mindset, so we don't believe that we can improve our abilities, talents, intelligence, This suggests that when we fail, that means that we're left interpreting that we are a failure. So because of this, there's some differences between how those with a fixed mindset and those with a growth mindset see the world. Those with a fixed mindset, they focus on looking good. They want to validate their talent because if they look bad, once again, they internalize that failure. But those with the growth mindset, they're focused on learning and growing. They spend their time on performing and excelling instead of looking good. Those with a fixed mindset, they avoid challenges. And in fact, they give up easily. They want excuses for not succeeding. Those with the growth mindset, they embrace challenges and they're able to persist beyond failure. Those with a fixed mindset, because they see other people as not being able to change, they provide lower quality and lower quantity feedback. But those with the growth mindset are much more willing to invest in their people. Those with a fixed mindset believe that success should come naturally. If it doesn't come easily, they think it's not for them. On the other hand, those with the growth mindset believe that success takes effort, that if they want to succeed, they're going to have to persevere through a significant amount of effort. So who's likely to have a brighter future? Well, research over 30 years has led experts to say cultivating a growth mindset can be the single most important thing you ever do to help you achieve success. All right, now we're to our last set of mindsets. This is the difference between inward and outward mindsets. When we have an inward mindset, we see others as objects. But when we have an outward mindset, we view others as people and we value them as such. This shapes how we see the world and others around us. When we have an inward mindset, we're focused on benefiting ourselves. But when we have an outward mindset, we want to benefit the team. When we have an inward mindset, we see ourselves as being more important than others. But when we have an outward mindset, we see others as valuable partners. When we have an inward mindset, we seek the spotlight and we want to limit others' capacity to gain the spotlight. But when we have an outward mindset, we're willing to share the spotlight. We include others. Those with an inward mindset see others as not doing the best that they can. But those with an outward mindset are much more empathetic. They see others as doing the best that they can. And if they're not performing up to expectations, it suggests that they may not have the resources that they need, as opposed to a lack of effort. So who's likely to have a brighter future? Well, I think one of the ways to think about this is to think about it in the context of trust. People trust those who see them as people, and they distrust those who see them as objects. My personal research on mindsets has found if others believe that you see them as people, that moves the needle on trust even more than the behaviors or interactions that you engage in. Trust has bottom line effects on an organization. This is because as trust increases, speed increases and costs decrease. The converse is also true. As trust goes down, speed goes down and cost goes up. So if we want to be more effective and more profitable, it's important that we ensure that trust is on the rise so that speed also is on the rise and costs decline. So those with an outward mindset are more likely to have a brighter future. Wrapping this all up here, I'll ask the question again. So who's more likely to have a brighter future? Someone who has a fixed, closed, prevention, or inward mindsets? Or someone who has growth, open, promotion, and outward mindsets? It seems pretty clear, right? Those that have a positive mindset foundation are going to have a brighter future. So if we want to, once again, get out of inertia and change our trajectory, what we've got to do is we've got to change our mindsets. So look back at your list of your ideas for your brighter future across your personal and professional lives and consider, once again, where you are now and your brighter future. So how do we get there? The answer is we've got to think, learn, and behave in new ways. This fundamentally requires a change in our mindsets. So what mindsets do you have? You probably got a sense of your mindsets as I went along and described them. But if you want greater accuracy in determining your mindsets, let me invite you to take my free personal mindset assessment. You can do this by texting my mindsets to 44222 or by going to my website at ryangottfredson.com. When you take this mindset assessment, you'll receive additional information about these mindsets and you'll receive a customized report identifying your mindsets next to thousands of other people who have completed the mindset assessment. In addition to that, you'll also be given some information on how to go about improving your mindsets. So in terms of what we've done today, I've presented obviously a lot of information, but we've actually accomplished quite a bit in our journey from where we are now to where we want to go, our brighter future. Here's what we've done, is I've helped you become aware of the power of mindsets. It's So my guess is you've largely overlooked the power of mindsets, but now hopefully you have a better understanding of the foundational role that they play in our lives and our future. You've also learned about the specific mindsets that are foundational to our success. Again, up until this time, you probably didn't know which mindsets are foundational to your success in your future. By identifying these specific mindsets, you've overcome almost half of the battle of improving your mindsets. You see, we can't gain any traction on improving our mindsets if we don't really understand what mindsets we need to improve. Third, you've started awakening to the mindsets that you possess. Hopefully you'll continue this as you take the personal mindset assessment. By getting a sense of where you stand along these continuums, that helps you paint a path to improving your mindsets. So that's where I think we are. I think you're well on your way to being empowered to creating a brighter future for your personal and professional lives because you understand the power and the foundational role that mindsets play in our lives. So before you is a brighter future and new possibilities. And that brighter future and new possibilities is within you. And it all starts with your mindsets. So going back to our purpose today was to help you to be a creator of a brighter future. To create this brighter future, I hope you endeavor to seek to win rather than lose. That you identify a clear destination that allows you to have this promotion mindset. I hope you endeavor to be open to hearing and understanding the ideas and suggestions of others. That you see disagreements as opportunities to learn. That you seek to think optimally as opposed to be right. In other words, I hope you have an open mindset. Third, I hope you see yourself as someone who could change. And I hope you see challenges as opportunities to learn and grow, thus having a growth mindset. Finally, I hope you endeavor to see others as people as opposed to objects. So now it's in your hands. The power is yours to become a creator of your brighter future. And the place to start is with your foundation, your mindsets. So again, let me invite you to take this personal mindset assessment to help you as you change your trajectory away from inertia and to a brighter future. Thanks again for your time.